Hello, everybody, and welcome to our final live call of the first Child-Led Autism Summit. So I am going to give everybody a minute to get into the live because I just sent the link to Tina. So I'm sure it will take a few seconds before a few of you hop on. But if you are here watching, send a comment so that I can see that people have connected, and welcome. I cannot believe that we're on our last day. So if you're here, I think Tina, that you're here. Let me know in the chat. I'm just going to wait a few minutes because I was very last minute this morning, as per usual, with getting the link out. But either way, since some of you might be watching this replay, I'm just going to start with a couple admin type things. So we are going to do our closing call today at 12 p.m. Eastern Time, noon, so in just 2 hours. And we are going to be doing our grand prize giveaways. So I have 2-year scholarships to the Child-Led Collective, which is my membership. Those of you who joined last night after our rubric workshop, welcome. I'm so excited. If you joined last night or this morning and you are wondering, okay, I joined, but I didn't get any information. Tina and I had a slight little tech hiccup there. And so you won't get your welcome email until today because technology is a beast. So we are going to get that all set up today so that if you did join the membership, you'll get your welcome email and you'll understand what's coming from that. So thank you for joining. I know that the current members are going to be excited to have you all joining us. So hopefully, yes, Tina said technology, that's all we can say. Right. And all things considered, it went very smoothly this week. And that was my biggest fear for the summit, was that the technology wouldn't cooperate. And so TGFT, thank God for Tina. Okay, so that replay will also go up into your hubs, and Tina, I think we should post it in the Facebook group too, and maybe send an email. That replay is important because it will tell you, if you missed the live call last night, it will tell you about the membership. So you might be like, wait, what membership? In the rubric workshop at the end, we talked about my monthly membership, the Child-Led Collective. And so I want you to be able to hear that invitation as well. Okay, I see a few people saying hello in here, so that's great. So we'll make sure that everybody gets that replay and that you have access to it for 24 hours, at least, if you're on a free ticket. But we'll probably just email you the replay so that you can watch it when you have a chance. But the doors to the Child-Led Collective, which is my monthly membership, they close tomorrow at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. So you have about a day and a half, if my math's correct, to decide if you're interested. And that when you join the membership, you get the rubric goal bank, which is awesome. And I think it's well worth the $29 per month, even if you join just because you're excited about that. I think if I was to sell that product as a standalone, which I don't, and I don't know when I will, if I will, it would be more than $29. So I think that it's a great deal to be able to gain the community, keep the momentum going, and get that tool plus all of the others that have come before. So definitely, Tina, could you drop a link in the chat to the membership information page? That would be awesome. Karen said, you look amazing. Let me just tell you one thing. 2 milliseconds before we came on, I was trying to make myself look alive since I am exhausted, and I had mascara, and if anybody wears mascara, you know exactly the feeling that I'm about to tell you. I was rushing and I poked myself in the eye. And so not only were my eyes burning and watering all down my face and actually like blur. I couldn't see anything, but I had mascara from my eyebrow to my cheek. So Karen, your comment, it's landing for me today because of that. That was a struggle. Okay, so again, this live is going to be about, I don't know, we'll probably stay on for another 20 minutes. I've been trying to just kind of go with the flow for these lives. And hopefully if you have questions or thoughts or comments, you'll put them in the chat and I can get to them as we move on. But it's been really, really fun to be able to talk with all of you. I genuinely feel like for those of you who have shown up to every call, and even if you watch the replays or you're in the Facebook group, like just seeing your names and reading your thoughts and your comments has been so moving. And I mean, I couldn't ask for a better audience for my first event like this. And in the closing call today, we'll talk about how many of you actually attended here, and we'll do the rest of our giveaways. We'll do one or two today in this live, but we'll do the rest of our giveaways. We've got amazing prizes coming your way. And then I chose 3 families for donations. Thank you. And Adina said, glad you did your summit. I did Tara's for the second time and yours so good. As a mom, I enjoyed all the talks. Kelly said, what time is the closing call? It's at 12 p.m. Eastern time. So in just about 2 hours, we'll do our closing call. And in that closing call, I'm going to be giving away our grand prizes of a year scholarship to the membership. I'm also going to announce the 3 families that I'm going to be donating $1,000 to each. To help them with anything, stress relief, daily expenses. And so it was very hard. I was up until 2 o'clock in the morning reading through all of the nominations. And honestly, it was almost impossible to choose. And so I went back and forth. My husband kept telling me to just choose randomly, but I had already started reading them. And so I knew that I needed to just read them all. And so I tried to choose 3 families that would really benefit from a break. And I know $1,000 isn't, $1 million, but it would be a break for me. And I think that it's hopefully will take the edge off for somebody in receiving it. So it would be, it's a nice pick me up and a reminder that there is a community. Hallie said it's huge. Yeah, it's hard to keep into perspective. But I think being able to help a couple people is honestly feels, I don't know, it's the best part of all of this. And I think every time I think about my love language, I think like, I kind of fall in the middle of all of them, but I definitely think those that gifting and giving is part of my, maybe not my love language, but it's definitely part of my, my value system. If I have something, I want to give it to others as well. And so, yeah, giving is my love language too. Karen said, Tracy said, I feel as though we've become our own family. And I know I've made longtime friends here, which is Tina. Please screenshot these comments. Tina has been screenshotting so many of your kind comments and feedback. And I have been blown away by just all of the feedback. And I know that as one person and as 2 people, me and Tina, I haven't been able to even reach out, to the speakers from the conference to tell them what a huge impact they've had. I haven't even spoken to the speakers yet about the event. I've been truly just jam-packed, action busy. So all of your comments on the different presentations and the speakers, Tina's been screenshotting them, compiling them so that when I do finally have a second to catch my breath, I can share that with them as well. Because I know that when you are a speaker in this event or an event like this, you don't always know if what you're presenting when it's pre-recorded will will land. And so I knew that their presentations were amazing, but I was just excited for them to get that feedback, not just from me. And yeah, Karen said their involvement in the summit pages has been invaluable. So I agree. I have to say the best speakers. And one of the things that was important to me, there were 3 things that were important to me for the summit. And hopefully if you're listening to this live or replay and you ever are considering hosting an event like this, which if you are, send me an email first and I can help you, like Tara helped me. But one of the things that you think about in these summits is that our therapy fields and our education fields, they're big, but they're small at the same time, especially on social media. And so what happens is the same few people end up talking about the same topics. And there are so many different perspectives out there that just because maybe they don't have a huge Instagram following, or maybe they don't have presentations under their belt, or they're not specialists in a certain area, they don't get the opportunity to be in front of their field like this to this extent or in this capacity. And so one of the things that I wanted to really consider when choosing speakers was making sure that, yes, of course, I wanted all of my friends with these big platforms to join. Like I knew that I was going to be so honored if Rachel Madel agreed, or Jesse Ginsburg, or Alex Zakos, or all of the amazing, incredible educators that we all know, because anytime they speak, it's amazing. But I also wanted to make sure that people with out large platforms also had a chance to share their perspectives. And so I was even just as honored by their willingness to be a part of this. And I hope that from this, maybe that confidence of presenting to 20,000 plus people will help those speakers to realize that, yeah, what they have to say is super valuable. And I know there were a few presenters in this summit that were like, wow, I can't believe that I was asked to do this. This is huge. And so I say this for a few reasons. Number one, because I think that we need to be amplifying different voices. And when we only listen to the same few voices, it's just an echo chamber. And so hearing what other people have had to say was huge. And so Tina said, so intentional with her choices. Thank you, Tina. And so I do think that if you are like, wow, I have something I want to offer in a summit like this, I want to get into speaking, you should also consider sending us an email. Maybe once the what's the word I'm looking for? Once the chaos passes, once the summit settles and all of the, I'm taking a breath, I will start to think about next year's summit, which is wild, but like I really did plan this for a year. So I will give myself some time to just breathe, but then I will start thinking about next year. So if you are here and you're like, wait, I want to present, I have something to say, please send me an email. I will put up an application for speakers at some point, probably in January, but keep in touch. I love to bring forward voices that maybe otherwise wouldn't have a platform like this. DV said, thank you for highlighting Kayshana's interview and having the autistic adult panel. Both of those were in my top 5, because that was another thing. I think I said that there were 3 things to keep in mind in an event like this. Number 1 was amplifying voices that maybe don't have a platform, right? That just because you don't have a social media following, I have to say this, doesn't make your knowledge better than anybody else's. Sometimes you get lucky and you grow a following. Sometimes you work hard and you grow a following, but like there are people who aren't on social media who have a wealth of knowledge too. So 2 years ago, I didn't even know that there was a speech therapy social media community. I just so happened to come online for shits and giggles and found myself in this community. So that's awesome. The second thing that I wanted to keep in mind for this was that when we speak about the populations that we serve, when we educate on the the students, the people that we are aiming to help, we have to listen to them. Like, we can't talk over them. We can't just pick and choose which of the insight and feedback we listen to and which we ignore, because I think that cherry picking is easy to do. It's easy to ignore the inconvenient truths that maybe we don't want to hear, we don't want to think about. And so my goal in highlighting people like Kayshana and the Autistic Adult Panel and the AAC users that we brought on, and Sue, and just everybody who was able to bring that lived experience. I wanted this event to be not something where we're just talking about autistic people, but that autistic people are fully a part of. And so I'm so proud to say that I think over 40%, possibly almost 50% or more of our speakers at the summit are autistic. And to me, that's definitely in my top 5 things of what there is to be proud of in this summit, is being intentional with finding voices that have, Vanessa said, you literally thought out every detail and it shows. I'm so grateful. And I appreciate that kind of feedback, because as somebody who's not detail oriented, and I know when I say that, people are like, well, that seems not like a lie because you just planned all of this. It was a struggle from start to finish, and Tina can attest to that for me, for my brain. I think I had to, people talk about, who was it that said time and a half? I have to work everything time and a half. I think it was Dr. Haley Crane in our Breaking the Mold panel. We had this live panel, Breaking the Mold, with some professionals who are doing things differently in their careers. And Dr. Haley Crane is a psychologist, and she's just like, smashing the mold in her field. And she has a learning disability. And she said, for me growing up, time and a half is not like, it's not just like a platitude. It's truly what I needed in order to just achieve what others were getting done, whether it was an essay, whether it was a test. I needed extra time. I needed that time and a half to do things. And the things that I accomplished were harder for me than maybe they were for others, because I had to work so hard at things that other people took for granted. And so I keep thinking back to that. And when I think about how I planned the summit, maybe it's dramatic to say, but it felt like time and a half. It felt like somebody with a very organized type A personality probably would have had a hard time planning it, but not to the extent that maybe my brain did, in just trying to understand even all of the pieces and the layers and building the hub. So anytime somebody emailed and said like, I can't get into the hub, I'm like, oh, deep breath, because I know that I created the hubs from scratch. And I'm like, okay, I hope I didn't mess something up here, because the tech was a beast. So I know that in these lives, because it's literally just me talking, I always feel like I'm just talking about myself, and I don't like that. I don't want to be that person who just is, tooting their own horn. And I hope that that's not how it's coming across. But I say all this to say that we can do hard things that are not in our repertoire. I never thought that I would be able to plan an event like this. And so I talked in the Breaking the Mold Hub. I talked with the panelists before we went on and after. So we're friends. We all became friends. Tara Phillips from Autism Little Learners is the whole reason I'm doing this. I did the summit. She's the whole reason that we became friends, this panel and I, because we all have our own memberships, either launched or coming. And so we were talking behind the scenes about just all of the work that goes into an event like this, and then not knowing how to actually experience the pride, like to feel proud of the event. And so having these kind of like intimate live calls where I can see your comments is so beneficial for me to keep me going, because it's hard to access, I'm sure for all of us, a feeling of being proud. I can logically say this event was successful. There were this many people and this many kids that could potentially be helped, right? But to really sit in that and be present for that feeling of pride or feeling proud is hard, I think, for us as adults. Definitely is for me. So being reminded to just take it in. You have no idea what your comments mean to me for this undertaking. And 3 months ago, when I wanted to not do this anymore, when I was like, can I just cancel the summit? I'm glad that I didn't. I'd love to know in the chat, excuse me, I have no voice almost at this point. I would love to know in the chat what your takeaways have been, what questions you still have. We're going to do a lot of that at our closing call, but I'd love to know what your thoughts are on all of this. I see your comments coming in. The third thing that I wanted to keep in mind with this event, and so if you're just popping in, the reason I'm saying this is because in case anybody else ever wants to host an event like this, even at a smaller scale or a bigger scale, whatever, like just the thought that goes into choosing the perspectives that get highlighted. The third thing I wanted to keep in mind was that I didn't want a panel. Hi, Angeline. Hi, my friend. I didn't want a panel of all white women with the same experience or the same mentality, the same thoughts, right? The same perspectives, the same, privilege. I wanted to be able to have a group of people that brought different perspectives to the table. And something I've said recently on social media, and I want to say it again, is that most of us in this field are white women, and we can hide behind that privilege in a lot of ways, and it's not always comfortable to speak up on it. I know that it's taken me this long to know how to say things, what to say, and I still don't know that I have the answer. I don't think I ever will, but it doesn't matter. Just say it and do it, and give time and space to people with different cultures, different backgrounds. Give the mic to Black and brown professionals, hear their experiences, let them tell us the things that maybe are inconvenient for us to hear. And then we can do something about it. We can amplify that. We can make an impact together, but we can't just continue to go through and ignore the facts that are inconvenient, the facts that are hard to talk about, or the facts that we feel like, okay, I don't know what to say, so I'm not going to say anything at all. We just can't do that. And I'm still learning that too. And Adina said intersectionality. Yes, it's huge. Different perspectives are key. Great variety of speakers and topics. So those were three things that I think I am most proud of in the speaker selection. Yes, we had people with huge platforms, and I'm so grateful for them. But we also had people who brought perspectives that genuinely gutted me at times and broke me down and showed me, kind of highlighted the areas where, I didn't even realize I had growing to do. Kelly said, I agree. It was so nice to not sit and listen to white neurotypical women speaking about the things we all learned in school, but rather the voices of people that actually have the lived experience. Tina, you better screenshot that one, because that's exactly what the goal was. And the other thing that I appreciated so much was that when you put out a community, or you put out a perspective, or I hate to say the word vibe, but you put out a vibe, hopefully like the vibe that I give off, it attracts the people who need to be there, or who want to find that community. And I saw so many of you in the comments being like, I also have ADHD. I also struggle with this. I never knew that there were so many of us in this boat. And that to me was amazing, because I know that the field is filled with type A personalities, and good for them. We love to see it. But for me, could never be me. I am controlling in many ways because I feel like I have to, because if I'm not controlling, then I feel like I will be out of control, and I don't like that feeling. But when it comes to actually that nature and the way that my brain thinks, that ADHD really does fully influence my decisions. Tracy said, I'm 66 and I've been working with my extraordinary students for over 30 years and I'm still learning myself. Thanks to you this school year, I've learned it's okay to pivot. It's always okay to pivot. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. And that is exactly the point of all this. Barbara said, I went through a gambit of emotions through the summit, from ambivalent to sheer anger, from curiosity to elation. I mean, this is like everything. And if you were here and let me know in the chat if you came to Lance's call yesterday. If you aren't an All Access Pass holder and you don't know what I'm talking about, we had a speaker yesterday, Lance Macklemore. And it, just for the record, it took everything in my being to not sing, I'm gonna pop some tags, which is the Macklemore song. Hopefully somebody understands. And as an ADHDer, that's anytime somebody says anything to me, immediately I'm singing something in my head. So, and I didn't do it. So I'm very pleased with myself for that. But if you didn't catch my conversation with Lance yesterday, okay, Jennifer, thank you. Lance brought a perspective that was inconvenient and was a perspective that challenged us and a perspective that I wasn't sure we were ready for. And, Kelly said, I was also wondering the whole time if his last name was said Macklemore. It is. At least I think it is. That's how I've heard others pronounce it. So hopefully I didn't butcher it. I've been struggling through names a lot this week. But I knew that Lance's perspective would challenge a lot of people. And me as well. I think that even when we don't, so just to kind of catch people up if they don't know what I'm talking about, Lance is an AAC user. He's autistic. He has apraxia. Kelly said, I knew it wasn't appropriate to ask, but I wanted to. Well, good for you, because I barely really knew that it was not appropriate. I was going to ask, but then I forgot. So, but Lance described the idea that in our society, we tend to view disabled people as objects of inspiration. We tend to look to autistic people, disabled people, people with different abilities or different support needs. We tend to look at them as inspirational. When they do something, we cheer for them or we praise them, but it doesn't, it's not authentic in a lot of ways. It's sort of like, and he put it in a very blunt way. He said, when people treat me like that, when they treat me like any little thing I do is miraculous, just because I use an AAC device and I have a disability, that doesn't make me feel good. That makes me feel small, and it makes me feel, like both small and like I'm on a pedestal, that I have to be this like perfect angel at all times because people look at me as inspirational. And I just think that perspective like smacked me in the face the first time I heard it, because I was like, that's exactly what we don't need to be doing. And yet that's how our society functions as a whole. We have specials. We have 2020 specials. We have news specials. Oh, this person did this amazing thing. And I think what Lance was trying to say is that we both can exist. We can be inspired by people who achieve great things for themselves. Like, he's not trying to take that away. But when we just want to look at disabled people from this toxic positivity lens where we're just like, oh, good job. And then, okay, now you can go, and the curtain closes and you're out of sight, out of mind. I don't know. Everything that he shared, I just felt was a huge wake-up call. And some people in the chat were even kind of diving deeper. And I know that there were people in the chat who said, wow, I never really thought about this. And I now have a lot of thinking to do. Like, am I treating people this way? I may be. And it's unintentional. It comes from a good place. He said it feels like a modern day freak show, like back in and Lance is like a history buffer, philosophy buff and art and music. And so like, I'm sure he has the exact like time period, but he said long ago, they used to have these freak shows where people would come sort of like a human display of human oddities. And we've all seen that like caricature in media, where people would come and they'd want to be like shocked and horrified by looking at other people who were disabled or who had differences. And yes, Jennifer said, I've heard that called inspiration porn. And Lance was saying that's what he was saying. He was highlighting, I think her name was Shelly. I have it written down somewhere. Shelly, maybe you know Jennifer, who had a TED talk about it, calling it inspiration porn. And he said, we're not your inspiration porn. And he said there, back in the old days, they had these freak shows where people would come and gawk at people who were different. And he said, we've gotten away from that. We've learned as a culture that that's not right. Right. We've learned that, okay, we can't treat people like that. But he said the way that we've sort of overcorrected in the opposite direction is that we now do these like modern day freak shows, that's Lance's words, like where we hold disabled people up like, oh my gosh, look at this person. And we all sit back and go, oh, yay. And then the curtain closes and that person doesn't have the actual ability to share the real nuance and depth in their experience. They feel like they have to be positive. They have to be what others want them to be. If they're this inspirational figure, they can't possibly have flaws. They can't possibly have a bad day. And so I think I knew that it was going to be a good conversation. And I think that Lance really delivered and he gave us perspective that most of us, I'm sure, haven't thought of. I think that the other thing that came up in one of our live calls, which I'm going to hopefully for the next like 10 minutes until we wrap up our live, because I honestly am so blown away by everything I've learned this week. I could sit here for hours and talk about it. But I want to respect your time. I'm sure you don't want to sit here all day and listen to me. The other thing that I learned that I think everybody needed to hear, and hopefully everybody will watch the replay of the Autistic Adults panel because that was open to all attendees. We heard it not only during, Tina, can you put Lance's full name in the chat and maybe his handle? I think his handle is Loud Lamp Man. Excuse me. All this talking is killing me. Okay. What was I going to say? I can't even remember what I was going to say. Oh, the Autistic Adults panel. We heard from Maria Davis Pierre, who is the founder of Autism in Black, which is a nonprofit organization, which thanks to our All Access Pass holders, we were able to donate to on that call. And that was sort of just a game time decision. Once I realized during our call that Maria's organization took donations like that, I knew we had to do it. Trying to pay it forward, the people who have invested in this event. But something that she said that is a perspective that we don't hear enough. And we as white people now, I'm speaking for myself as a white person, like I can't even probably fathom this. And I have the luxury of just ignoring these perspectives if I don't want to read them. Whereas people of color, Black people, brown people don't have the luxury to ignore the realities of their experience. And what Maria shared is that, there's all this talk in the autism space about masking and unmasking. And masking is something that neurodivergent people do to protect themselves, to try to fit in in a world that doesn't, really understand them or wasn't designed with their neurotype in mind. And it's a way of surviving with others who don't get it and not letting your real authentic self out. And so we refer to that as masking. And many people report that they masked, their whole lives and then if they're late diagnosed, a lot of adults diagnosed with autism in their adulthood will describe this feeling of, okay, I can finally unmask. I can be myself. And we talk about it in that capacity, but we also talk about it with our kids. We talk about, the damage of masking for our kids. And that's a very real thing. There's a very real problem with making kids mask and having kids mask their whole childhood, and that leads to burnout. And what Maria said was, as a Black woman raising Black sons, she teaches her kids to mask, and she tells them, you don't have the luxury of not masking. That's not for us, because the harsh reality that we don't want to hear and we don't want to talk about is that Black people will be treated differently in society. And something she said was, our Blackness comes first. When we enter a room, that's the first thing people notice. And we bring our culture with us anytime we enter a room. And so we have that to contend with. And there is a lot of deeply ingrained racism in our society. And so what she says is that my autistic son isn't safe to stim loudly in public. He's not safe to yell and scream and have a meltdown in public, because he could be looked at as a threat. And she said something that I could barely respond to. She said, I need my kids to come home to me at the end of the day, and masking allows them to make it home to me at the end of the day safely. And just as a mom, I mean, let me know what you think. Tell me in the chat how hard that was to hear. And then I want you to think in your head a second step of yeah, it's hard for us to hear, but imagine Maria sharing that with us and what that would be like to really grapple with. Because yeah, it's gut wrenching. And so I hope that we don't just hear these things and go, oh, that's terrible. Wow, that's horrible. And then just go about our business, because it's easy to do that. It's easy to be detached from these experiences because they're hard. But what Maria was trying to express to us is she doesn't have the luxury of detaching from that. And so we really need to be voices and be beacons of change in our settings, even when it's hard, because when we have privilege, we need to use it wisely. But yeah, she described masking as a safety precaution for her kids to make it home. And that altered my brain chemistry. And she wasn't the only person to say that. When I spoke with Kayshana, who hopefully as many of you as possible listened to Kayshana's interview, I was so nervous that we weren't going to get time to have our interview, Kayshana and I, because there were a few times where they were not feeling well. There was a time where I didn't feel great. And so it just kept getting postponed. And I'm like, I really want to have this conversation. I really wanted to hear what they had to say, but I don't know that I was expecting the conversation to be as amazing as it was, and just as deep and honest and raw as it was. And so if you didn't listen to that interview, please do. Kayshana is a multimodal communicator. She uses AAC. She uses her speech. She uses sign language. She's got so many modalities of communication, and her perspective is incredible. They describe their experiences in school and being treated differently. They're also getting their degree in education. And Kayshana describes wanting to change the terminology of special education, which can feel like a euphemism, to adaptive education. And I'm like, that needs to be everywhere. Adaptive education just makes so much more sense. And that's really at the end of the day what we're doing. We're adapting and accommodating for all, and we're creating an equitable community. So I think that interview is one that I actually was trying so hard to get it like up and ready, because anytime I had an interview to put on the hub, it wasn't just like a one button click, which I know I'm not going to like get back on my high horse of how I had to build the hubs, but like what people don't realize is that every time I upload a video on there, there's like 25 steps that have to be done to create the page to hold that file and to link everything and to make sure that the video is processed. The platform itself takes hours to process a video. So I was like dying to get that interview out there, but I was late to get it in on the first day, and it was all the way at the bottom of that page. And I got a message from Diane Robson from And Next Comes Elle. If you don't follow Diane, I should have had her as a speaker this year. And there were so many people that I was like, oh my gosh, if I don't stop, I'm going to have 100 speakers, and it's going to be like a 2-year event. So I'm definitely going to ask Diane next time. I've had Diane on my podcast before. She is a hyperlexia expert. And she talks all about hyperlexia, which if you don't know what hyperlexia is, you need to know. If you support autistic kids, it's something that just we all should have been taught about, but I don't think we were. And she's a huge advocate for understanding hyperlexia. And she messaged me and she said, this interview with Kayshana is like life-changing. And I don't think it's getting enough attention. And the second I saw that, I'm like, oh my gosh, yeah. It's not getting enough attention because people don't even know it's there because I added it at noon and I didn't even think of that. And so the second I saw her message, I was like, okay, I have all these things that I'm trying to think of. And thank God you said that, because I'm immediately going to fix that. And so we added it to the next day to the hub for everybody to see. And I tried to put it at the top of the page. I tried to post about it in the Facebook group because it really is one of those that you need to watch. And Karen said in the chat that it was, her conversation was all about, like, there was so much important stuff that she talked about, and she's also funny, and it was just a great conversation to listen to. She also is collecting donations for school supplies and basic care essentials, and I was happy to link her different payment methods there. And so if you want to donate to them, you can go to their page in the hub, or we can post the links again, either in the chat. If you can easily find their links, you can post them in the chat, or we can post them in the Facebook at some point. But I know that it was a labor of love for Kayshana to do that interview. They had to program their device with their answers like 4 different times because it kept getting messed up. And so they said that almost led to a meltdown. And so I was just very appreciative that they stuck it out and they still were willing to take the time to have that conversation with me. Shelly said, the summit made me realize I need to increase the volume. Knowing that at any time I could have been part of the reason someone had to mask makes me feel sick. And I agree. And I think that that's a huge takeaway. And I'm happy that you are being aware of that now. And Megan said something that I wanted to highlight too. She said, I've heard something similar from Black families who say that they need ABA therapy for their kids who have intellectual disabilities and don't have the skills to mask and unmask. And it's true. Whenever there's that conversation about ABA being bad, or, people who choose to do ABA are bad, I think that really diminishes the experience of a lot of people. And I think it shuts the conversation down, because nobody then wants to admit that they see any value in it, or that they don't want to be viewed as a bad person or a bad parent. And also there's enough guilt to go around for parents. So guilting them or shaming them out of ABA is never going to be a tactic that I stand by. Do I agree that ABA can be damaging and harmful? 100%. 100%. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. My perspective is that ABA is a science that can be applied in a damaging way by people who aren't willing to evolve and do better. It's a science that has been applied in a damaging way. And so that being said, there are speech therapists, there are teachers, there are occupational therapists, there are regular old people in every field who are harmful and damaging. And so while, yes, I think there's a lot of harm that can be done to autistic people through ABA, and I don't want to take away from that. I also think that we have to stop pointing the finger just at ABA and realize that there are people in all of our fields that need to evolve and grow. And it's more about how you are applying those strategies. And we had Maggie Haraberta, who is the owner of Unfurling Littles, which is an ABA center in Philadelphia, where I live. And her center, when I tell you, so the amount of places that say on their website, ABA centers, and I'm sure speech centers and whatever, schools and stuff like that, but particularly ABA centers that say child-led, play-based ABA, and then you take your child there and it's not that, and they just use that as a marketing buzzword, is criminal, and it's everywhere. And I think that Maggie, who is an autistic adult who owns Unfurling Littles in Philadelphia, is a BCBA who is like a thought leader in the field of ABA. She is like doing her thing. Like, she is out there advocating for change in her field. Her and people like Psychobabble BCBAs on Instagram, just people who are trying to move the field forward. And while they can't undo damage and real harm that has been caused and real trauma that's been inflicted, people like Maggie are, I can't say enough about her. Her center, I went to visit a child at her center, and while I trusted, because I had known Maggie from social media, I had known that she had really great like perspectives and values and things like that. But I'm a little bit skeptical still of centers that say they're child-led in ABA, because I've had my family's been burned so many times by that. I've been bamboozled. And so when I went to Unfurling Littles, I was like, holy crap. This might be more child-led than my therapy center. Like, I learned from them. And the way that I walked into that room, and I want you to hear this, because I think I know it's not the norm. And I know that I've gone into so many centers that are traumatic. And if they're hard for me, they're traumatic for the kids. Like, if you walk into a center, a classroom, a school, and everybody's yelling and nobody's happy and everything feels heavy and tense, like, thank your lucky stars that you get to go in and out and you're an adult. But think about the kids that have to be there every day. Like, that's what makes me just not want to stop talking about this. But Maggie Center is the first center for autistic kids that I've ever been to where every single adult was pleasant. Every single adult was engaged. Every single adult was happy to be there, was engaging with their client. Nobody was yelling. I didn't hear a single person raise a voice. I didn't hear anybody say anything except for engaging with their students and each other. The culture there is so good that it's honestly like, I think every professional should get to go to that center for a day and just like learn. I think Maggie should be teaching culture, like center culture. Yes, Karen, she's in Philly. She's in East Falls. Like, her and Club Small Talk, which is one of our presenters, Bridget from Club Small Talk, is right in the same building. And both of those companies are just a 10 out of 10 for me, and for everybody that they serve. But Maggie has done something that I used to think was impossible, which is make an ABA center that feels good because it is good, and that actually honors kids in every capacity. I mean, it is so good there. And so the way that I look at it is I say, Okay, while I would never tell a family that they had to do ABA. I would never say to a family, you should do ABA, because I know that there is real trauma and the chances of finding a place like Maggie Center is not realistic. So I wouldn't necessarily be the one to tell a family, yeah, you definitely need to do that or whatever. But I also have heard people go the opposite direction and say things like, well, I'm not going to work with a family that's in ABA. And I would never do that either. I would say majority of the kids that I treat are in ABA too. It can't be either or, because like Kelly just said, we need to do better, because ABA is also a lot of people's only option financially, time-wise. And that's exactly right. It goes back to that privilege of saying, well, I would never put my kid in ABA. Well, for some people, it's the only way for them to be able to work and for their child to be able to be safe during the day. So you can't make things so black and white. And hopefully the field continues to evolve the way that Maggie Center is, because I'm telling you, when I went there, I cried the second I got into my car after I left, and I took a video and I was like, what did I just experience? Because I've gone to many places in my decade plus. I've seen many things, and I've never been in an autistic support environment where everybody was engaged and everybody was pleasant, and there were lessons happening and there was creativity happening and kids were running around. There was nobody being forced to sit. Kids were exploring, kids were communicating. Like, I don't know. It sounds unrealistic because we've not all seen it, but I can assure you it is a real thing that happened. I'm actually going to put her handle on the screen here. And hopefully I get it right. Unfurling. I think it's Unfurling Littles with a underscore in the middle. Tina, maybe you could fact check me, but you can follow her on social media. Her website is just unfurlinglittles.com, but I think the Instagram is really a great place to start. And hopefully her example will help others to evolve as well. And I know that it already is in our area. We got to give things time, right? And so Maggie was a presenter who I was excited about. And then she actually said, okay, I hate to do this, but I have to drop out. I over committed and I can't get my presentation done on time. And I was like, okay, no problem whatsoever. I've been there, fine. What I said to her was like, you might see yourself in the marketing materials because they're already scheduled to go out, and I don't have the brain capacity to go and figure out where they are scheduled and how to fix them. But I think maybe subconsciously I knew that like there was a chance that she'd decide differently, or maybe I was just hoping that. But a couple days before the summit started, she was like, guess what? I did it. I'm able to do it. I figured out a way to get it all done, and I just really want to be a part of this. And I was like, well, your page has already been built, so send it over. And I'm so glad that I did. And yesterday, Maggie's presentation was like glitching on the free page. So if you're on the free ticket and you didn't see her presentation, we're going to give you extra time with that one because it's short and sweet. I want to say it's like 16 minutes long, but it's really impactful. So many people were talking about it that did get a chance to see it. So I fixed it in the free hub and we'll give you some extended time to view it because it's important. And I think she was the only BCBA in the conference. And so I think her perspective is really, really valuable. Okay. All that being said, let's do a couple giveaways before we wrap up, and then we'll get back together for our final talk at 12 o'clock. Okay, so let's take a look at what we still have to give away. I don't know if when I start to type, if you guys can hear the like clicking of my keyboard. Karen said, love your 20-minute chat. Karen, you've been at every single one of these. You knew there was not a chance in hell that it was going to be 20 minutes. Like with nobody here, nobody's face that I can see to check me. The way that my brain and mouth are set up, this could be all day. So your comments are the only reason that I'm like, oh yeah, people like have lives and they probably like are like, okay, girl, get to the giveaways, please. But I could do this all day, which is why having a podcast has been a great outlet for me, because it's been fun to be able to just talk and talk. Okay, thank you, Jennifer. And Shelly said, I'd listen all day. And Kelly, you said, yes, I can hear the keyboard. So the one thing that I've shared recently is that I have been obsessed my entire life with with cash registers. And maybe that's why, maybe I relate so much with my students that like, that's why I can sort of understand when they have interests like in traffic cones or in, I don't know, the Chick-fil-A logo, or in specific episodes of Mickey, or in certain sounds, or like my one student loves geese. And so like maybe I have a soft spot for understanding those deep interests, because as a child, I was obsessed with cash registers and I still am. Okay, Holly said, me too. That's why I help at the registers at our kids' consignment sales every year. Okay, Holly, are you talking about the Just Between Friends sale? Because every time I go there, I go, okay, how do I become a cashier here? Because it's the perfect thing for me. Once a every 6 months to be able to get my hands on a cash register. Well, when I was about 8 or 10, my parents, yeah, Just for Kids. Oh, Just for Kids. I heard of that one too. But there was a there was a Christmas where my parents bought me a cash register, like a real full-blown cash register from BJ's Wholesale Club, which if anybody has them, like a Sam's Club, like a place where businesses would buy their cash register. They got it for me. It had the chef's kiss of keys. My mom knew exactly what kind of keys I was into because I was mesmerized by cashiers. I also used to tell my parents when I was little that I wanted to be a cashier when I grew up because I wanted to have clicky nails, because I loved when a cashier would have like long nails and you could hear the, and so now I accommodate myself by purchasing different keyboards with different sounds. And this summer, I've been living at the beach with my entire family, my parents, my 2 kids, my husband, my brother and his wife and their baby, and a cat and a dog. And so, as you can imagine, there's a lot going on here. And that's why I've been in this room all week, because there's chaos and confusion happening out there. And we call it our office, where me, my sister-in-law, my brother all work together at this one like little table upstairs usually. And my sister was like, what is that? Why does your keyboard sound like that? And I'm like, what do you mean? It sounds amazing. Like, what do you mean? How could you not like that? She's just like, that doesn't bother you? I'm like, doesn't bother me. I picked this one specifically because I love the way it sounds, the clicking. So listen, I understand that not everybody likes that loud clicky keyboard sound, but I can't get enough. I have every keyboard that you could possibly think of. So she put up with me clicking away all summer. And so I feel like we also owe Kirsten a big thank you for that, because I'm sure as somebody who didn't like it, it was driving her crazy, but she tolerated it. Okay, so now that's the last thing I'll say, maybe, before I give away a couple more bonus or a couple more prizes. So let's head into our bingo page here so I can remember. Okay, one thing that I haven't given away yet that I really want to give away is, and it's not even on the website, so you might not even know that it's an option, is the Playtime with Tour song guide. I think that's what she calls it, the song book or song guide. So if you don't know Playtime with Tour, she is a speech therapist with a YouTube channel supporting Gestalt language processors. And I hate to insert myself in this, but Tour visited me in my office one day. She's from the area. She lives in California now, but she's from the Philadelphia area. So she came to my office one day when she was visiting family. And she's like, I want to make an impact. I don't know what kind of like resource people would want. And I'm like, Tour, what I would want, so if you can make this for me, that would be ideal. What I would want is like a book of handouts of songs that like the lyrics that you use, because she has a very specific way of writing her lyrics that are beneficial for GLPs. And I'm like, I would like a grab and go version of that I can say to parents, like, hey, here's a transition song. Maybe you could try this week. Yeah, Jennifer said, Noah, you inspired Tour. I mean, I think we did like a back and forth inspiration, but yeah, I was like, Tour, put all of your lyrics and then create some more lyrics for us and put them into an anthology. So that way we don't have to think on the spot of our lyrics, because then we end up singing the things that I end up coming up with are not great. And hers are specifically designed with the like strategies of supporting GLPs in mind. And so she did, and it is like a beast of a book. Like, it's got all of her lyrics. It tells you why they're written the way they are. It has QR codes on every page that take you to the video on YouTube, if there's a video that goes along with it. And she said people are like printing them, putting them on their fridge and reminding themselves, like, here's the song we're going to sing at the transition. Here's the song we're going to sing at dinner or whatever. And a lot of our GLPs, that's how they pick up language, is through music. So that, I think, is such a great product. So anyway, I want to give that away. So if you would be interested in that, I want you to just say GLP in the chat. And Tina, if you see anybody commenting on like Facebook, I remember some people weren't able to actually comment in the YouTube. So put their names into the chat if you see that. So I want to pick somebody for that book. And if you've already won something, let somebody else win, which I'm looking through our list here to see, because I, for one, am not keeping track. So thank God for Tina yet again. But let's see. So write GLP in the comments. All right, amazing. I see all of you. It's called, let me find the exact product. Let me put the link in the chat. It's her song guide. And honestly, it's $37, and that I told her to price it way higher. So I think it's a steal for anybody who does want to get it. And if you do end up purchasing it, if you don't win and you end up purchasing it, let me know, because I would love to make sure that Tour knows that everybody was excited about this. All right, so I'm going to scroll through and find a winner. All right, Jennifer, I saw your comment say that you were coveting it, and I wanted to make sure before I chose you, because I've seen you in all of these lives, I wanted to make sure I didn't choose you for something else, because I recognize your name at this point. But congratulations, you get the Playtime with Tour song guide. You're going to love it. It's amazing. And anybody else who wants it can go and check it out at that link there. She also has some other GLP related products on her website. Tour is another person who I would have loved to have speak at the summit, but she has been a guest speaker in my membership. So anybody who like I wasn't able to coordinate with for this is probably going to be a guest in our membership. So feel free to join us over there. All right, let's do one last giveaway. And then, yeah, it's $37 if you do decide to purchase it on your own. I also want to give, I'll do that at the closing call. The Informed Clinician or the Informed SLP has given us coupons for a discount on their subscription. And I can't say enough about the Informed SLP. It's my lifeline for all things research and evidence-based practice. So if you're an SLP and you want to take advantage of that, I will put the discount code on our slides for the closing call, and it makes it something like less than $10 a month to be a part of that. And you earn ASHA CEUs through that just from reading the reviews or listening to them. And they do really, really, like, I can't say enough good things, and I can't even get started because then I'll be on here for another hour. Okay, so that'll be at the closing call. Remember, the closing call's in just an hour. I have our grand prizes of the 2 memberships, I'll announce the families that are going to be gifted, and I will give away anything else that's left over that we haven't given away yet. And we will have a grand old time there. So anyway, I'm going to let you all go and have an hour away, and then I'll see you at 12. And I can't believe we're almost done. So hopefully you'll take advantage of the free month if you're an All Access Pass holder in my membership, or you will decide to join. What do you mean, can I tell Tor? What did you want me to tell her? Because I could tell her anything. She would be so excited to hear from you. Cynthia, I mean. Oh no, songbook not able to be put in cart. Let me see. It's working for me, Cynthia. Did you click the link in the chat that I put? I think you mean purchase. Did you try to use the link? Okay, it just worked on the link that I used. So try it again, and then let us know at 12 in the comments if you're there, if it works. And if it doesn't, then I will text her and ask her to give a new link. But it is working for me. So hopefully, don't worry, your typos don't bother me. I don't even fix typos anymore. I just assume the other person will do the hard work for me. All right. Yeah. And Tina said, if you join the membership, we'll get your welcome email ready for you today. Tina, there's a link in your hub to our closing call at 12 today. So go into the hub. I'm going to, in case you're still here and you're wondering what, let me just show you where you'll see your closing call. And again, I keep saying, oh, I'm sharing my screen, and I'm actually not. So now I am. So if you are on, this is the All Access Pass Hub, but it should be the same for both. If you scroll down to the bottom, you'll see this wrap up call. If you click here to join the live call, it will take you to this registration form. And all you have to do is just put your name and email, just so we know who attended live. And that will just make sure that you get the link. But you can also just do that right when you get there at 12. You don't have to do that ahead of time or anything. And Tina will put the link in the Facebook. All right. And if you're an All Access Pass holder, I will talk to you a little bit about all of the live call replays that are loaded in and which ones are still being added, but they will all be there in the next few days. All right. Thank you all for being here with me, staying here for the over an hour that we've been here, even though I said 20 minutes. Listen, it's the last day. I can do what I want, right? Okay. Shelly was able to purchase. That's awesome. All right, guys, I'll see you in under an hour at this point. Bye.